expert, apartment leasing. I can tell this is of interest. This is one of our most popular info sessions. My name is Shalise Connors. I'm the Executive Director of the Student Money Management Center. Thank you, Eric, for helping. We're just trying to get some little tech issues out of the way. This is our first Meet with an Expert of Maroon Money Month. Has anybody heard of Maroon Money Month? Did y'all see the signage around campus? Okay, that's Maroon Money Month. And so we are doing a plethora of info sessions and games and giveaways and online workshops and sessions like this for you starting yesterday all the way through April the 16th, okay? Chances for you to win prizes, collect the buttons, make sure everybody gets a button from up here. If you collect 5 buttons over the course of the month, then you can get a free t-shirt exclusive with our Vegas logo on it, which is, wow. Okay, we need to have a great example of the t-shirt. Okay. The Student Money Management Center services students on all 3 campuses and online. Welcome to our online community who is with us this afternoon. We bring you a lot of programs like this, not only just through Maroon Money Month, but throughout the academic year. For those online with us, our Associate Director, Gabby Pringle-Owanaka, is online with you. And she'll take care of any questions in the chat, and we'll figure that out with your questions. We definitely want to make sure that we hear you guys and answer the questions that you may have. Our expert presenters this afternoon are Mary Jacoby with TWU and John Rentz with TWU Student Legal Services. He is your attorney, and I'll introduce them here in a moment. But just a few housekeeping items for those people who are online. This meeting will be recorded, and it will be on our YouTube page in about 2 to 3 business days. So just be cognizant of the microphone in this room does pick up really, really well. You're more than welcome to have conversations. We want you to engage, but just know that, you know, we don't want it to be recorded on YouTube channel if it doesn't have to pertain to apartment leasing, okay? Feel free to ask any questions throughout the presentation. And if you're online, if you have any questions, just chat with Gabby. All right. So also online, if you can in the chat, put the campus that you're with. We're keeping track of our not only Denton, but also our Dallas and Houston students. There will be a short 6-question anonymous survey at the very end. If you guys can fill that out for us, let us know how we did today, how you liked the presentation. It really, really does help us with our online programming for the future. Okay, with all that said. We are joined today by 2 presenters who bring both financial and legal expertise to our wonderful topic of apartment leasing. First, Mary Jacoby is the Business Development Coordinator for Southern Denton County at TWU Credit Union, which is our Maroon Money Month sponsor. We're very excited that TWU is our sponsor. She has more than 36 years of experience in the banking and credit union industry and holds a marketing degree from the University of Texas at Arlington. She's very active in the communities across Southern Denton County. We're grateful to have her here sharing her expertise. And joining her will be John Rentz, who is a managing partner at Loveless & Loveless here in Denton County. He earned his accounting degree from LSU and his law degree with honors from the University of Houston Law Center. John previously served nearly 8 years as an assistant district attorney in Denton County and currently serves as the TWU Student Legal Services Advisor, which is a great resource available to students here on this campus. Please help me welcome Mary and John, and we'll turn the program over to Mary.
Thank you, Shalise, and good afternoon, everyone. Let's go ahead and get started with our presentation about apartment leasing and being ready to rent those apartments. First slide. It starts with your budget. So we obviously can't make any big financial decision without knowing where our money is coming from and going to and where our budget lies, right? So some basics of the budget, and we're going to talk more details as I get farther into the presentation, but you need to make sure that you know where your money's coming from and where your money's going to. So that's just the basics of the budget. What are your sources of income? You might have financial aid that's helping you pay for any sort of expenses that you have on a monthly budget. Mom and dad might be helping out. They might be sending you some money on a monthly basis. And then maybe you also have a job. Maybe it's a part-time job. Maybe you're doing the full-time school, full-time student thing, which you can do that. I'm an example of someone that did that, so it can be done. So figure out where your sources of income are. And then list in your budget all of your expenses. And when I say all of your expenses, I mean everywhere you spend money. sometimes we don't realize where and how we spend money because it's very easy to spend money. We spend money quite a bit electronically. We do cash apps, we do credit cards, we do debit cards. We scroll Amazon at all hours of the night. All of a sudden, money's going all over the place, right? So make sure you are really figuring out where is that money going. Even if you're pulling $5 out of your pocket and paying for something at Starbucks or something for lunch, whatever it may possibly be, which I know $5 doesn't go too far any places anymore. Please make sure you know where you're spending all your money. Okay. And then there is a rule of thumb with a budget that I wanted to touch on today. It's called the 50-30-20 rule. 50% of your budget should go to your needs, 30% to your wants, and 20% to your savings. Now, that is kind of a good rule of thumb. And then you're asking me, well, Mary, gosh, saving 20%, that sounds like a lot. And it is a significant amount. But it is also important to learn to live off of less than we bring in each month. So you want to put something back into your savings. Now, while you're in school, your situation might be that 70% of your budget goes to your needs, 20% goes to those wants, and 10% goes to your savings. And that is perfectly fine. It really is just kind of a goal to come from. The main thing is to make sure we're trying to save money each month. Okay. Then also make sure when you are doing your budget that you're doing your budget based on your steady income. If you get maybe tips or bonuses or maybe your commission it's not always a steady source of income, you don't want to base your budget on that. You want to base your budget on the money you know that's going to be coming in on a regular basis each month to pay for those needs and wants in that savings portion. Okay. The other part, that's another good rule of thumb, is you want to make sure for your rent amount, when you sit down and figure out, hey, how much am I going to be able to afford for rent? And you guys all know, I'm assuming some of you guys have actually looked at the cost of rent of different places, right? So it all varies depending on where you want to live, where the apartment needs to be, what type of services and amenities that apartment has. You want to make sure, as a rule of thumb, that you don't spend more than 30% of your gross monthly salary. Okay, so like, for example, if you have a job and your salary ends up being $36,000 a year, that's $3,000 a month. You're not going to want to have that rent payment, the rent portion, to be more than $900 to $1,000 a month, which, again, $1,000 a month, it's not going to get you something huge, but it will get you a roof over your head. It just depends on where you decide you want to go ahead and have that apartment. Okay, let's go ahead and go to the next slide. Upfront costs. So here's the thing. We all think of, okay, when we're going to go and lease an apartment, it's about, well, how much am I going to afford for rent each month? But before you even get there and even sign on the dotted line, there's going to be a whole bunch of upfront costs. They're listed here. You've got your security deposit, and I will go back and we'll talk more details with these as well too. Your first and last month's rents possibly due. Pet deposit. Any of you guys have a pet? Yeah, pets are expensive. Renter's insurance, utility setup, other fees such as parking and things like that, and then other miscellaneous expenses. So a security deposit basically will cover for potential damages to the property. It's usually 1 to 2 months rent. So before you even started paying that journey of that monthly rent, you've got to have 1 to 2 months saved up. So if it's $1,000 a month rent, you've got to have $2,000 ready to put down as a deposit before you ever take the keys and walk into the door. So that's kind of falls into that first and last month's rent also as well too. Pet deposit. Pet deposit can be anywhere from $200 to $500. It really just depends on the pet. Some places require you to include it as part of the monthly rent. So it may be that you have to pay like $25 a month as part of your monthly rent, which that may be a little bit easier because you may be able to budget that and have that expense go through the year as opposed to having to come up with that money up front. Renter's insurance. Any of you guys get renter's insurance when you were in the dorm? Or maybe your parents got that for you? Renter's insurance is very, very, very inexpensive, about $20 to $25 a month. And what it will do is it'll protect your belongings in the case of a fire or theft or anything like that. And a lot of apartment complexes now actually require you to have that. That is actually something that's very important. It's relatively inexpensive. And so that'd be one of those things that I'd recommend once you get your apartment to go ahead and see about getting your renter's insurance. Most places, wherever you have your auto insurance, you can also get a renter's policy added to that as well too. And then utility setup fees, it costs money to turn on the lights, turn on the water, things like that. Also things like trash pickup. A lot of apartments offer a trash pickup service, which is great, but they're going to charge you for that. So that may be an extra $25 to $50 a month, depending on what it is. And then also parking. I know that you guys pay to park here on campus. If you have a car and you drive here to campus, and if you're a commuter, you're going to possibly have to do that as well too. Some apartments might have like a covered parking or a garage type thing. And so you would rent that in addition to how you would have your rent of your apartment. Okay. And then the other thing would be miscellaneous expenses, like you might need some furniture. You know, you might have to buy some things. You might have to put some window treatments on the windows, things like that. Obviously, you want to make sure that wherever you're going to rent, because you're going to be spending a significant amount of money on rent, is comfortable. And you want to go ahead and make sure you have that. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Different than dorm rent. Like, this is one of those big adult times in your life when you're going to be responsible for making sure rent is paid on time, bills are paid on time, and you're taking care of it. It's not anything you can't handle. It's just different because when you pay your tuition and your fees and your room and board and all that stuff that you have here at TWU, somebody did one check and that was it, and it was taken care of. It's not going to be the same way in an apartment. So you want to make sure that you have that prepared for. So you want to maintain your budget. You want to pay attention to your budget. Look at it each month. Make sure, hey, am I in line where I need to be? Keep up with those monthly payments. You want to avoid any sort of late payments, especially with things in rent and things like that. You might also want to cook at your apartment. That's kind of the fun part about having your own place, right? You can cook, you can, enjoy that types of thing, because chances are you're going to be in a little bit more stricter of a budget and you're probably not going to be able to eat out as easily. And you may or may not have a meal plan here on campus anymore while you're still finishing up school. Here's the thing, look for student discounts whenever you can. I hear there's pizza on the way. So you guys are very smart that you're here because you're getting free pizza. So dinner's paid for tonight, right? Mm-hmm. So smart, good job. You guys already know that that's happening, right? So look for those discounts. Look for opportunities where you can either get, something provided with a meal or things like that. I know that I have a daughter that's at UT Dallas. She uses, when she goes shopping, she brings her student ID with her because there's a lot of stores that offer discounts to college students. So take advantage of that while you can. The more the merrier when it comes to that. Okay, let's go ahead and go to the next section. All right, so that's kind of some of the big parts of it. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the credit piece of it, because believe it or not, having a credit score is going to kind of factor into where you can go ahead and you can rent this apartment. Okay. I can't remember. I think the last time I was here, we actually did a presentation that touched on credit a little bit. So Shalise asked me to touch on it here. There are 3 major credit bureaus: TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax. And all a credit bureau is just a collection of the loans that you have and how you're paying on those loans. Does anybody here already have like anything that they're paying on? Like okay, what are you paying on?
My car.
Your car.
5,000 left.
Congratulations, you're almost there. Yeah, very good. I'm excited for you. Okay, so you've already got a credit bureau established because you're paying into that. But if you guys have got credit cards or any other sort of small personal loans or anything like that, you are starting to establish those credit bureaus. And I like to think of a credit bureau kind of like a transcript in college. So it's, how your transcript is a collection of your grades and the classes you took. That's what your credit bureau like. It's a collection of the loans that you have paid in the past, currently paying now, and then basically it's just a reporting mechanism. And then from there, if you can go to the next slide, there you get a credit score. And let's talk a little bit about what makes up that credit score. So there's many different factors, and we did this as a percentage. 35% of your credit score is how you pay your bills. Kind of like college. A big chunk of your grade is how well you do in that class, how well you do on those big grades, those tests, things like that. 30% is your capacity, about how much you have charged up versus how much you can borrow. Okay, so you're doing really well paying down that car loan, and that's awesome. We don't like to see your capacity to be above 30%. So if you look at it from a credit card perspective, if you have $1,000 limit on a credit card, we really don't ever want to see a balance over $300, because that would be 30% of that $1,000. Okay, and what we do is we look at it from the standpoint of what you could potentially charge up and based on what you've already got. We never want to see everybody, when we look at loans, close to those limits, because then it's like, okay, what's going on? What's happening? Are they having to utilize those credit cards to help sustain that monthly budget? So we need to look at that seriously. How long have you had credit is 15%. The longer the credit, the better. That's what you've probably heard this before. If you pay off a credit card, and hopefully you're in the habit of, you charge something, you pay it off each month, and you're in that habit. But if you have a situation where you've paid off a credit card, maybe you've had a balance on it and you've gotten that to where you've paid off the balance in full, don't just turn around and close out that credit card, especially if it's one that you've had for a long time. The reason being is that is helping to boost that credit score. What it said, the longer you've had credit, the better. So you want to make sure that history is there. Now, I have known people that have literally taken their credit cards and shoved it in the back of their freezer, and they forgot they had it because they didn't want to be tempted by having it in their wallet that they would use it again. Whatever process you need to do to make it to where you're not going to charge up and get back into that situation where you've got credit card debt, that is up to you, whatever works. But don't go and actually close out that account, because it will pull down that credit score. And then new credit, 10% is, are you looking for additional credit cards? I always talk with people about, especially during the holiday time, everybody's going to offer you a credit card. It's going to be the greatest thing you've ever, you've got to have it. All your friends have it. There's major FOMO with credit cards. Don't go through that. Honestly, if you've got a major credit card, a Visa, MasterCard, Discover, if you've got a debit card, Cash App, Apple Pay, Google Pay, you're fine. You could utilize your money pretty much anywhere that you would need to. You don't necessarily have to have a credit card at that store that you're shopping in. Now, the counter argument to that is, if you are somebody that shops at one particular place and you do it on a regular basis, some of these credit cards do offer perks and benefits and credits and things like that. That may be something you want to consider, but don't get in the habit of just opening up an account wherever you shop, because they're all going to offer you 10% off, and then you're going to end up with 15 credit cards before you know it that you don't need. And then the type of credit also counts too. It's about 10%. Installment debt, like your auto loan, is going to boost that credit score more than a revolving credit card debt would. So kind of the catch-22 is most people start off with a credit card. That makes sense, right? That's easy. We can get started with that. But then as you get to the point where, hey, I do need a car, I do need some things, that's where that banking relationship really comes into play. You want to make sure that you've got a good relationship with your banker, so you can go to them and say, it's time for me to buy a new car. I need help with that. What can I do? And they can help you through that process. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. And here's the credit score ranges. Credit scores are the higher the better. I don't like your grades in school, right? We like A's better than C's and D's, right? So higher, exceptional, 800 plus. These are folks that have had credit for a long time, and a credit bureau looks for a 2-year window. So they might have had people like myself. I've had multiple mortgages. I've bought and sold houses. I've bought and sold cars. I've borrowed money. I do use my credit fairly consistently. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you have a lot of debt. It's just that you charge on your credit card, you pay it off at the end of the month. You have an auto loan, you make those payments on time. You have a mortgage, you make those payments on time. So they can show, oh, okay, this is somebody that can keep up with their bills on a monthly basis. If you are to very good to exceptional, you're going to get the best interest rates that we can offer on loans if you decide you need to come get money from anybody in the industry. Now, that's a situation that our credit scores help us determine whether or not we can do a loan for someone at what interest rate we can give them. And again, the reason why you want to have a lower interest rate on money you borrow is because that way your monthly payments are going to be lower. The whole idea is we want to make sure we're saving money and we're getting the interest that is paid on the savings accounts. And if we have to borrow money, we're going to do it at the most efficient interest rate as we possibly can. Okay. And then good and fair, that doesn't necessarily mean we're not going to be able to do a loan for you. But if you are at the very good or exceptional level, if you asked us for a car loan tomorrow, you'd probably get an interest rate somewhere between 5 and 6%. Fair and good, those folks are probably going to have something between 10 and 11, maybe even 12%. So doubles. So it's a lot. It's a big difference. And when you do car loans for a long period of time, I don't know how long your car loan was when you got it, but most car loans are about 6 to 8 years now, because cars are expensive. Even used cars are expensive. So definitely from the standpoint of you've got a situation where you're going to be paying multiple amounts of interest for a long time. You want to make sure that you minimize that interest. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So how can you improve your score? You can pay your bills on time. I mean, that's like, okay, that's the most basic way to do it. Make sure that you do all you can to make sure you can maintain those payments on time. Get a copy of your credit report. Has anybody here ever gotten a credit report, a copy of it? Okay, you can get one free per year from each of the credit bureaus. Pay down your credit cards. Well, let me go back to a minute. If you get a copy of your credit report and you see something that's wrong on there, go back to the credit bureau and say, hey, this is not my loan, or I was never late on this loan. We need, and usually what happens is they will fix it, unless for some reason it definitely is a legitimate situation. But most of the time they're going to say, you know what, yep, we messed up. We'll go ahead and fix it. And then that hopefully will help increase that credit score because there's not errors on it. Pay down your credit cards. Do not close them out once you pay them off. Move your revolving debt to installment debt. So this would be the situation where if you had, say you had 3 or 4 credit cards and you had a significant amount of balance on there, say you had a $5,000 balance between all of them. Sometimes you can have the ability to do what we call a debt consolidation loan. You can put it into one loan. You can pay it off, say, between 3 and 5 years. And that will, in fact, actually improve that credit score because that's an installment loan rather than a revolving loan. If you do a balance transfer from one credit card to another, it's just going to show up as another credit card payment. So it's not necessarily going to be an installment loan at that time. Don't get new loans unless you need to. So I know if you're going to be tempted to want to get a new car when you pay your car off. Okay, no, you're not good. Okay, right answer. Right answer. Okay. So that's the thing. If you can keep a car and not have a car payment, that's the best, right? Now, don't tell my boss I said that because we're in the job of doing loans, and that's how credit unions and bank gets paid, is we get interest on that. But while you're at this point in your life, while you're going to school and you're trying to figure all of that out, if you can have life without a car payment, that's awesome, right? And what's going to be really great in your situation is you're going to have that car payment money once you pay it off, and you can do fun stuff with it, like bolster up your savings account, or whatever you want to do with that. Okay, so that's really great if you can slow down on getting loans. And then understand that this is a time, this is a marathon, not a sprint. It does take time for that credit to improve. So slowly but surely, as long as you're making those payments on time, you'll be in better shape. Okay, let's go ahead and go to the slide. So here's how you get a copy of your free credit report, freecreditreport.com or annualreportcreditreport.com. You can get one free from each of those credit bureaus. Actually, if you go to the first one, it's going to prompt you to go to the other ones. It's not a bad idea to get all of them, just from the standpoint of you want to make sure that they have the most accurate information on them. And sometimes not all lenders will report to all 3 credit bureaus. Most do. Your bigger banks, your bigger financial institutions do. But if you have a loan through a smaller financial institution, or maybe even like a credit company, card company, they may or may not report it to all bureaus. So you want to make sure that it's accurate. Okay. And then I'm about to pop in here to educate you. If you can go ahead and go to the next slide, Shalise. Okay. When you guys get a chance, scan this QR code. It's also the QR code that's on these brochures up here. This is how you get access to what I'm about to show you, which is called Educate You. Cameron's here. She knows all about Educate You. She loves Educate You.
It's my favorite.
I'm going to pop in here real quick, and then I'm going to have you kind of help. Sure. Be mine. You're doing so good being in person.
I know. And as soon as we're going to pause in between yours and let you guys get pizza, since it is here, it's free. It's free. And as soon as Mary's almost done, so you guys hanging with me?
Yes.
Finish up the banking part here.
Oh. You did the wrong song. Oh, I was like, wait a minute, that's not where I want to be. I want to be on an online thing. Not right now. Okay, here we go. Sorry, starting here. Almost. Here we go. Okay, so we like success. Yes, what I'm gonna have you do is I'm just gonna pull up. Do you think the video audio is gonna work on this?
I don't think so.
Okay, so we're not gonna go there then.
Yeah, I don't.
We're just gonna go to the budget tool. Okay, great. So what I'm gonna show you is, can we get to the display? Okay, and I'm gonna pull up here real quick. Okay, so what I did.
It's really moving
Oh,
slow.
it's moving. And we can just scroll up to that. If you hit, yeah, maybe it's perfect. Okay, so what I did is I just built a basic budget for a college student within Educate You. So this is one of the tools that you can use. This service is completely free, so I encourage you to actually sign up for it. It doesn't attach to your bank accounts or anything like that, but it's basically a really powerful engine of information regarding finances. So right now, while you're sitting here at TWU and you're trying to figure out what your world looks like as far as what my next steps are going to be, or you're somebody like me that is trying to help her daughter finish up school, and I'm within a 10-year window of maybe retiring one day. What does that look like for me? So it's got a lot of information on everything. This is the budget tool. And so what I did is I went ahead and put in like kind of a base budget for a college student. So that would be, you have some income coming in, about $1,000 for a job. You've got some financial aid that you've gotten here at TWU, and mom and dad are pitching in some money. So your income is about $2,300 per month, which is great. Okay, so I can see it better. Okay, so let's scroll down, Shalise, a little bit. And as you can see, our budget is positive. Green is good, red is bad. We don't like red on a budget at all. Okay, green is great. Okay, the first section in the budget is savings goals. So before we've paid any bills, we are going to try and save money. And I specifically put in some pretty specific goals here so you guys can see what it works like. This is the emergency fund. You guys have probably heard about having that first $1,000 into an emergency fund. So what does that do for you? If you have a situation where you've got a flat tire, something happens, you need to repair something in the car, God forbid you have an emergency room visit and you need to pay deductible on insurance, and you got to do it right then and there, that's that $1,000 that'll just kind of keep you comfortable, okay? This goal says right now we have a current balance of $100. Our target is $1,000, and we're going to hopefully make that target by March of next year. So we need to be putting $75 a month away in that emergency savings account right away, okay? Then we're going to go down, and maybe our car's paid off, but you know what? We're probably going to need to buy one here in a couple of years. So we have this next one that is, oh, yep, there's a new car. $100 in there. Our current balance is $500 per month. Our goal is $5,000, and we hopefully are going to have that by December of 2029. Okay, so that's another goal. And you can have buckets for your savings goals. Sometimes that helps us keep up with the fact that we can actually keep up with it separately and it doesn't get confused. Then this is some of the fun goals. We want to go on vacation. We have a big vacation plan by the end of 2028. We have $250 signed up for that. We want to have $2,000 for it. So we're going to have to be saving $53 per month. And then this little one, just like a little extra vacation by July of this year. And so we need to save 63 for that. So we can go ahead and keep going down. And we're not to the point where we're investing just yet, but that's okay. You'll get there. It's moving slow.
Mm-hmm.
Our technology is not being nice to us.
Fine.
So here's our expenses. So we've got our rent at $1,000. Just keep scrolling down like you're doing. Our our rental insurance is $25. Our utilities are about $150. Our TV and internet's about $50. We spend about $175 in groceries. And we keep going down. Hopefully we're not childcare just yet. But if you have childcare, you can put that in your budget. We don't have a car payment, but we are paying $150 in fuel. We're putting aside $50 for car maintenance because we never know what's going to happen with our car. Fitness and beauty. So we have $50 for like gym membership or anything else like that. Maybe you guys want to get manicures or pedicures every once in a while. Toiletries. So we've got some money built in there for that. And then we always have a fun part of our budget because let's be honest, sometimes we need to have fun in life, right? A lot of times we need to have fun in life. So I've got $100 for dining and going out and $25 for clothes. And then at the bottom of this, I've got $25 a month to make sure those credit card payments are being made. Keep going down. And the bottom is going to be your auto insurance at $150 per month. And if it'll allow you to scroll back up, so there's hopefully it will. There's going to be there we go. You can go to the analysis button right there. So the cool part about this is you can go in there each month and you can use Educate You to build your budget. But then you can see it's going to tell you what percentage of your income. Let's see right there. Your home, which is your needs, your roof, things like that. That's the majority of it. Okay. So it's got stuff like it's got everything in there as far as that goes. Fun is 5%. I think if you go up a little bit, I think it's between 10 and 12%. 12% was your goals, your savings goals. Okay. Your car transportation is about 9% of the overall budget. So that 50-30-20 rule I was talking to you about earlier, you can apply this to this budget tool. Okay. So I just wanted to show it to you so you can kind of get an idea if you're like, okay, this is all great and wonderful, Mary, but where am I going to start? Educate You is a great place for you to start with that. Okay. Again, completely free, something that DACU offers to all of our members and our non-members, and we would just love you guys to utilize it and be able to go ahead and hit those financial goals with it. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to John, and he's going to tell you all the legal stuff.
All right.
Happy.
Yes. Anyway, let's take a good power break here. Everybody, please go back in the back. Thank you, Cameron, for getting the pizza. Go get some pizza. We have water. Everything's in the back of the room. Please don't be shy.
Go get free food.
Go get some free food. Yes. Nazik. You have to get free food too? Yes.
Oh, what do you hear?
This is the real fun, juicy part. All right. This is all the legal questions and like about pets and disability access and everything else. So please give your attention to John. Thank you.
So first off, how many people here realized you had an attorney already? And that is the answer we normally get. I get one or two. I am your attorney. Student Legal Services, we are here to provide you with free legal, not representation, but information. So if you have questions about leases, if you have questions about any type of legal issue you have come across, make an appointment. We're free. You already paid for us with your student fees, so use us. One of the things I want to touch on before we get into the fun and exciting world of law is there was talk about credit, and Mary went into great detail with that, and I do want to point out to you, even if you're unsure about going ahead and getting an apartment, or you think that this is something you're going to want to do down the road, if you don't already have a form of credit now, I recommend you go ahead and see about getting a credit card. It's very easy for us to just operate on the idea of I've got a bank account and I've got a debit card and I'm good. But that doesn't create as much in the world of credit because you're only spending your money. The whole idea of credit is, can I trust you with my money? And that's what we want to go ahead and build, is the idea that we want those landlords to be able to trust us on the idea that they're giving us something of value. They're giving us a house, an apartment, something that we can live in, and we're promising them that we're going to pay them money back. And they need to see something that makes them feel comfortable with that. So start building your credit early and start trying to do that as best you can. But always, always, always make sure you're in a place that you can afford to pay it off. Don't burn it up and then leave it there because that can make things even worse. Now, when we talk about buying or getting our first apartment or our first house and we're signing that lease, recognize what you're doing. You're signing a contract. You're entering into a legally binding agreement with another party. You are making one of the most adult decisions you can ever make because you are, in fact, subjecting both yourself and you're agreeing to subject them to our legal system. What that means is read your lease. You're making a contract. You need to pay attention to what's going on there. Now, not all of it's going to be real clear. Not all of it's going to be really easy to understand. That's why we exist as lawyers, and that's why I provide free legal services to you. If you've got questions about your lease, feel free to bring them to me. But there's some key points in a lease that we want to pay attention to, and some of them can have financial consequences. One of the things that's important for us to recognize and pay attention to is where and how we have to pay our rent. Sometimes it's pretty straightforward. Maybe it's I want you to bring a check over to my part of the house over here because you're renting a back property area and I just need you to knock on my front door and hand me a check every month on the 10th. Sometimes what we're seeing more and more is I'm going to go ahead and give you a link to our app and we're going to pay online through our portal, and I need to have the money paid by a certain time. Recognize there's two things that we care about. One, how it gets paid, and to a date that it has to be paid by. Recognize that in that lease, a lot of leases are going to have a penalty clause in it. They're going to have something in there that says if you do not pay your rent by X day, we, the landlords, can charge you a late fee. It may not seem like a lot, but understand that that adds up if you're having that problem every month. One of the things that's better on the front end is to talk to the landlord about. You're getting paid on a certain date. It just turns out that your money from your job always comes through. It's never there on the 10th, it's always there on the 12th. Getting them to agree to accepting it on that 12th and making sure it's in your legal documents can end up saving you a lot. If they charge you a $25 or a $50 late fee, recognize if you're having that happen over the course of a year, that's $300 to $600. That's starts to add up to a lot. Think of what you could do if I walked up and said, here's an extra $300 to $600 that you have this year. There's a lot of things you could think of. And we had that smaller vacation program with $750 that we're budgeting. You're almost there right there, not paying your late fees. So recognize that you need to pay attention to the date that it has to be paid for. And recognize when you're using these portals, a lot of times the landlords aren't going to remind you. And they're not going to tell you, they're just going to assess that late fee. And so we want to avoid having that financial hit on us. We also need to recognize that we're making another big commitment, and that is the condition of what we're moving into. All right. You know, we all were probably raised where our parents told us when you go somewhere, leave it better than you found it, right? This is now contractual for you. You need to be able to leave where you're living in at least the same condition as it was when you moved in. Now, there's some key points to that. You're not moving out typically until a year later. Who's going to remember exactly what everything looked like a year later? Well, you know what? Luckily, about 99% of us carry around these really, really cool devices that can go ahead and document everything in our lives. Use them. When you go into an apartment, one of the things that most property management companies are going to ask you to do is sign something saying that everything's in working order. All right. We don't do that until we check to make sure everything's in working order. Turn on all the burners on the stove, make sure that they all work. Turn on that oven, make sure it's actually getting hot. Is that refrigerator that you're getting actually cold? If it included a washer and dryer, make sure it actually runs. Check all of the lights. Are they on? Are they working? Then do a walkthrough and video document anything that looks out of sorts. If there's a little tiny bleach stain on the edge of the kitchen floor where the carpet comes up and there's just a little bit there, document it. If there's holes where it looked like somebody, no big deal, they just kind of put a nail in there and they were hanging something there, doesn't bother you, document it. Because the problem's going to happen when you go to move out, your landlord might go ahead and look at it and say, those weren't there. It's $25 for every hole that I've got to repair. There's a stain on this carpet. I'm going to have to pull out all the carpet and replace it. And unfortunately, they don't sell this color carpet anymore. So I've got to replace all the carpet at this point. You need to be able to document what the condition was when you moved in. And then likewise, document what the condition is when you move out. This is the safest way for us to protect ourselves from liability when we're getting done with our lease. We also need to recognize what are our obligations. All right. They're providing us with a place to live. We're paying them rent. That's not everything. You may have other obligations that you have to pay attention to. For example, it is common practice in a lot of our leases to say that you're responsible for making sure that all the lights are working in your apartment when you move out, because I provided you with an apartment that had lights that were working. You may also be responsible for going ahead and changing your air conditioning filters once a month. Some apartments, especially our larger apartments, they're just going to come through and do it for you, because that's one of the services that they want to do, because that way they know that it's been done. But if you and your friends are deciding you're going to rent a house together, or if you're in a smaller apartment unit, they may be looking at you to go ahead and take care of that. Also, if you do end up renting a house, lawn care, right? A lot of times that's not going to be included, and you're going to have to either decide, okay, I'm going to go pay Billy down the street to come and cut my grass for me, or I'm going to do it myself. and you need to pay attention to what those requirements are. Also, just recognize that some things are also what we call extra lease. They're outside of the lease, but they're actually still kind of pulled into it, and that would be community rules. Anytime that there is an offer for additional services, so additional services would be anything from trash pickup, but also they offer a pool. They may offer a small gym, things like that. You're going to have restrictions on what you can do as far as using it. Make sure you follow that. If you are in a multi-unit property, there will probably be some sort of language about what your responsibility is as far as noise. When you can play music, when you can't play music, when you can be loud, having things relatively quiet, things to that nature. Also, when you go to move into an apartment, don't just look at the brochure, go to the apartment. And one of the things you want to look for is not just the apartment itself. Look around. Who are you living with? If you move into an apartment and you notice that everybody around you looks like they're 70 and 80, they're probably not going to have the same taste of music, and they're probably not going to have the patience for noise that you may have. And while you may not be doing anything wrong, it may make it a little bit more difficult for you in that environment to live in. I always recommend you try to find a place that matches what you need. Also pay attention to what you need to do in the case of an emergency. Not everything that happens in an apartment is your fault. Water pipe breaks. You've done nothing wrong. You simply turned on the bathtub and you went to turn it off and the water won't stop. And it's 10 o'clock at night because you just got off of work and you were going to go ahead and take a bath and then you were going to go to bed. There's nobody at the front desk. Who do you call? You need to know that. You need to know what's the number to maintenance. What do I do in an emergency? Also be aware of other things. Do they provide any type of security on the premises? If you're parking your car, which most of us, if we're living off campus, unless you're right around campus, you're going to need to have a way to get to campus. If you've got a vehicle and you're parking your vehicle at that location, what does it look like security-wise? Check lighting. Make sure you feel comfortable. Do they have a working security gate? Understand there's a lot of places that will say, we have a gated community. But if that gate stays open all the time, then it's not really a gated community. We need to pay attention to some of those costs that Mary talked about and recognize that we have the opportunity to get some of those back, but not all of them. Right? So our security deposit is exactly that. It is a deposit that we say, we promise we're going to take care of your place, but in the event that we don't, here is some starter money to go ahead and take care of any damage I do. Now you have a right to get your security deposit back when you get out of at the end of your lease. However, there are a lot of things that they can deduct out of that. The biggest two areas are unpaid rent. So if we leave and we haven't paid everything, then they can take the unpaid rent out of that. And then also cleaning fees. One thing I'm seeing nowadays is that most of our larger apartment complexes and our larger property management companies, they are going ahead and saying, we're going to take cleaning out of your hands. And I'll be honest with you, it's because most of us, while we may feel like we're really good cleaners, we're not cleaning it at a professional level. And that's what they're really wanting, is that professional cleaning. So I'm seeing more and more, if we look at our move-out restrictions, our move-out requirements, you'll see in that they will say, we will automatically deduct a $300 cleaning fee from your security deposit when you move out. What that means is they're paying for the cleaning. Or actually, more importantly, you've already paid for the cleaning. You don't need to spend the time. You don't need to go ahead and do, I'm going to go rent my own little steam cleaner and I'm going to do all this extra work. You clean it up, but you leave the deep cleaning to the professionals because you've already paid for it and you've contracted to have that paid for. And there's not going to be a way to go ahead and argue with them not to get it back. Damage done, they're entitled to go ahead and deduct any damages that are not what we call normal wear and tear. All right, so the idea of normal wear and tear. We're in a room with a carpet. People are walking on this carpet every single day. Over the course of time, that damages the carpet. It will have to be replaced. I cannot, as a landlord, tell you, well, I looked at it and it's just looking ratty now, and so I'm going to go ahead and charge you for replacing the carpet because you were the last tenant. Doesn't work that way. Now, if you damage the carpet, that's different. You spill something on it, you change the color, you bleach it, you tear holes in it, you pull it up at the corners or at the edges. That's a situation where now they can go ahead and say you have done more than normal wear and tear. The same thing goes with paint. Paint will start to go ahead and potentially, depending on the place, the quality of the paint in the walls, it'll start flaking off. It'll start changing its color based upon light and sun exposure. That's not your fault. But if you damage the walls, if you leave marks on the walls, that is your fault. Right? That's the difference that we're looking at for it. I want to take a quick caveat here and talk about our little furry friends. Pets are not normal wear and tear. All right. Understand that they have nails, cats, dogs, anything that we allow to run around free is apt to go ahead and cause additional damage. That's why we pay a pet deposit. I want to be clear that we're seeing pet deposits, we're seeing pet rent, we're seeing pet fees, they're labeling a lot of different things. Pet deposits, it sounds like you're going to get that back. Every one of our furry friends causes enough damage that they're going to be able to claim that, even if it's not oh, look, they peed on the floor here, or oh, we had a problem where they blocked up the air conditioning filter because of their fur or something like that. The fact of the matter is that they're harder on our apartments than we are. And so just recognize that with your pets. But that security deposit, when you move out, you are entitled to get whatever is available back within 30 days. And if they want to keep any of it, they have to provide you with written notice specifically of what they're keeping, the costs involved, and if you want to see an itemized statement of what they're charging you for. I can't just look at it, walk into a room and go, I think ballpark, it's going to cost me $1,000 to paint this place, so I'm going to keep $1,000. All right. If I want to do that, I need to have gotten a bid to be able to tell you this is what they said they're going to charge me to go ahead and repaint your apartment because here's the damage that I've seen. And this is again why we want to document when we move out so that we've got all of that clear information so that we can be very clear. That mark was not on the wall when I moved out. We don't have a whole lot of really disingenuous, really bad property managers out there, but I'll tell you, I've heard stories, and there have been some, where people will go in there and they want to go ahead and paint the walls. So I'm going to come in, I'm going to scuff it after you leave, and then I'm going to take pictures of it and say this is what it looked like, and then I'm going to charge you for the paint. Also recognize when we move out, you have an obligation in almost every lease to still tell them that you're moving out. Right? Sign my lease, I am moving in, and it's going to be right there at the end of July. It's going to be right in August. I'm going to be able to start school, and then I'm there until the end of July. My contract, my lease says August 1st to July 31st. No question, right? It's all in there. Every lease also includes that if you all don't give me 30 days notice, the lease will change to a month-to-month lease, and we'll just keep going. And so it's a really easy way for you to get into a situation where you end up owing an extra month's rent if you don't give them the notice that they require in that lease. And check, not all of them are 30 days, some are 60 days. The longest I've seen is a 90-day. I don't see a whole lot of those. Most of them are 30 and 60. Also pay attention to what they say qualifies as moving out. Not just getting your stuff out. Sometimes it's also when did you give them the key? All right. If they say you have to be out by this day and you've got all your stuff out, but you didn't give them the key back, they may be able to go ahead and say, well, you didn't give us the key by the move out date, so therefore you have another month's rent that's owed. Just be aware of that. What we don't want to do is we don't want to incur an additional debt. We don't want to create difficulties on ourselves that we can avoid otherwise. Pivot back to pets for a second. Those pet deposits, those pet rents, understand that there are exceptions. If you have a service animal, that includes emotional support animals, they are not allowed to charge you for that pet at all. They will try, all right? Now, let's also be clear on what that means. I can't go get a pet and decide it's an emotional support animal and just say it is. There are requirements, actual regular physical service animals, when they're dealing with a physical disability, they have to have specific training and have to be certified. Emotional support animals do not, but an emotional support animal does require documentation from a mental health specialist saying you need one. It does not need to outline why. All right, your mental health rights are still your mental health rights. They are not entitled to know why you have an emotional support animal, but they do need to have something from a mental health expert that says that you need it. One thing we are running into is that there's a lot of people online, mental health experts online, that are saying, go ahead and pay $150, meet with me, and I will go ahead and approve your emotional support animal. These are being found to not be valid. All right, part of what they want is they want to have a relationship where the idea is that you are being counseled, and that mental health expert is actually providing you with mental health assistance, not just here's your rubber stamp to say, yes, in fact, you get to have an emotional supporting. And so make sure you've got what it takes on that qualification if you want to go that route, and then be firm. All right. That is your absolute right under the ADA. They cannot do otherwise. They cannot exclude your animal from your apartment within reason. All right. If you have a horse, I'm telling you, I mean, they don't have to go ahead and give you a larger apartment just because you got a horse and they won't fit the door of the apartment you got. All right. But they cannot exclude your emotional support animal or your service animal just because they don't want animals in there. All right. Now, one of the things that I always recommend is remember that this is like a friendship. Okay. We want our friends to like us. It makes things a lot easier to deal with. If we're going to class and we're sitting next to somebody and we hate each other, it's going to be a really long semester. That's the same thing as your landlord. If you and your landlord are going to be at loggerheads about stuff, sometimes it's better just to say, you know what, I'm going to find a different landlord. I'm going to leave. I'm going to go somewhere else. This is not, I don't want to sign this lease if you're going to have a problem with me having an emotional support animal. Because even though you have a right to force it, just recognize that you could create an environment where they're looking for anything that you do to say, all right, you've reached your lease, I'm going to kick you out. So just pay attention to those concepts. Also know your rights, all right? You have a right to what's called an implied habitability of residence. What that means is they have to provide you a place that is deemed reasonably safe, okay? It is Texas, and Texas is very pro-landlord. What that means is that they will make every effort that they can to try to go ahead and allow a landlord to continue to rent the place, even if we deem it to not be appropriate. But if it is not possible to live in, then they are violating their obligation. But also understand that because Texas is very pro-landlord, you can't withhold rent. All right. In a lot of states, you'll see things where people will talk about, well, they didn't fix this, so I'm deducting the cost of that from my rent. Mm-hmm. You can with court approval. All right, we can bring a remedy suit and the judge can say, yes, you can go ahead and pay for that to be fixed and you can deduct that from your rent. But you can't do it on your own. You also can't say, I'm not going to pay rent until you do X, Y, Z that you told me you were going to do. That's not allowed. And so understand that while that feels like that should be something we should absolutely have a right to do, Texas says no, that we cannot do that. One other area I want to touch on is on security and safety. Okay, more and more what we're seeing is people being concerned about the ability to have a safe home. We're talking about moving into apartment complexes. There's people around. We may not know the area that apartment complex is really well. Take your time before you move into a place and find out what it's like. I strongly recommend that everybody, before you move into an apartment, get in a car and drive around that place between 11 o'clock and midnight. See what's out there. See what type of people are hanging around on the street. Get an idea of what you're going to have around your home. Because that's what you're doing. You're choosing to move into that environment. A landlord has no obligation to provide you with a safe environment. They have to provide you with a habitable apartment. Now, what they do have to do is they have to go ahead and provide you proof that they have rekeyed your apartment when you move in. Highly recommend you do that every time. Every reputable landlord should be willing to do that because the simple fact is the moment you hand me a key, I can go over to Home Depot and I can make a copy of it. I can make 50 copies of it. I can decide I really didn't like this landlord and I could go hand it out to all the homeless people in Denton. And if they didn't change your apartment keys, then there's a whole bunch of people that have access to all of your stuff and frankly to you. You have a right, if they have not done it, that they have to do it within 7 days. And so make certain that you do go to your landlord and you say, I want proof that the locks have been changed. And if not, then I want you to change the locks in 7 days. That's an absolute right you have under Texas law. And so you make sure that you do that. All windows and sliding doors must have working locks on them. So go through when we're doing that initial check to make sure we know what the condition of our apartment is, make sure they all stay closed. I say this because I actually own a house that we rent out. And when our last tenants moved out a couple of years ago, they had broken a latch on it. And when we rented the new place, they went in to move in and they found they had some co-tenants living in a closet that had climbed through the window and had decided they were staying there. And so we had to remove those individuals. But you don't want to have that situation. All right. You don't want to be in a space where you have a concern about somebody coming into your apartment. Let's also talk briefly about co-tenants, which are our roommates, which are our besties, right? Our friends that we just can't live without. And this is going to be the greatest thing. It's going to be so awesome. We get to live together until it's not. All right. Friends are friends. And then when you start to live together, you start to find out all of the things about them you never knew. And some of those might be problems. Maybe they really like your hairbrush and they're using it all the time. And that just creeps you out. Okay. Maybe they're a person that really likes to cook, but never likes to clean. And you're going to need to be able to deal with that. You also have to recognize you need to deal with it financially too. And that is because when you go on to a lease, unless you are renting individual rooms, you are co-signing that lease. So what that says is, I agree that I am jointly and severally liable with my roommate for everything going on. So what that means is, any damage done by either of you, each of you are independently liable for the full amount. That doesn't mean they get to double collect or triple collect, but it means that if I know you have a job and I know you don't, and you did the damage, I can still come after you and say I want the money. I don't have to look at who's at fault. You're both at fault. That also means that we have to be cognizant of the additional risks that we have. We're in school. Sometimes people succeed in school, sometimes people don't. Sometimes people have family emergencies and they've got to leave. There are very, very few reasons that we can just break a lease because we want to, and understand that if your roommate leaves, you're still responsible for the full amount of rent for that place. And so always, always, always be very, very cognizant of the risk that comes with having a roommate. Most of the people that come and talk to me about landlord-tenant stuff are roommate issues. Not that the roommate's done something to them, but have been because my roommate left, I can't afford this lease, what can I do? And having to explain that, look, the problem is y'all are both on the hook and you're still there, so they're going to be looking at you for who's responsible. So pay attention to it. It can be a scary time. But it can also be one of the best things you can do because you're growing up. You're giving yourself an opportunity to move in and take more responsibility with your life. Just make sure you do and make sure you pay attention and you read your lease. And again, if you have questions about it, come ask. You already paid for me, might as well use me. Does anybody have any questions?
We do have questions online, but also make sure, raise your hands here if you have any questions. The one online is, do you provide legal services to students in Houston?
Absolutely. We are for all campuses and our online students as well. So it'll probably be by phone call because I only make it down to Houston about once every 2 years.
Okay, and I'll qualify obviously our Dallas campus
Absolutely.
as well. And then we have one, this is interesting. Okay, I'm living in an apartment where we face pest infestation and the cooling, the air does not work. I have informed the landlord several times. They tried to resolve it, but it remains unresolved every time. I want to break the lease without compensation. I have enough emails as documents. How can I safely break my lease? As we've tried several months to fix these problems, but their mismanagement has forced us to leave the apartment, and she has 5 months left on the lease.
Okay. So the first thing I would say is call, make an appointment, because one of the things I've got to review is the actual contract itself. What did you sign and what does it say? Here, I said that Texas is a very pro-landlord state. I'll give you an example of that. There is no requirement anywhere in the state of Texas under Texas state law that they have to provide you air conditioning.
Oh.
El Paso, South Texas, it doesn't matter.
Wow.
Now, that's not true by ordinance, okay? So what that means is that there's not an actual statute under our property code that addresses it. If you provide central heating and air in the city of Denton, we have ordinances here in the city of Denton about how much they have to be able to cool. It's not as much as you'd probably like. It's not hey, it's 110 outside and my air conditioning unit will not keep it at a nice balmy 65 in my apartment and I'm unhappy. But it's safe levels. It's the ability of cooling at 20%, 20 degrees, sorry. As far as that one goes, I'll need to know where, I'll need to know some things. We'd have to also look at what reasonable steps they've taken to determine whether or not we can say we don't have a habitable location.
Okay, and I put the link into the chat online. Also legal services is the website, and you can go online, you have to log in with your TWU credentials and you can make an appointment.
I also have handouts that will cover most of the things that I've talked about. So for all the people that are here physically, you can pick those up on your way. They also have the way to contact us. If you're online and you want that, I will make sure, just let Gabby or Shalise know, and I will make sure that those documents get to them and they can go ahead and send them out.
One more thing I wanted to mention real quick regarding Zelle or Venmo for payment of rent, which we see a lot in our world. If you are in that situation where you have a landlord that says Venmo me, Zelle me the money, remember that you have to make sure you've got all that receiving information correct, because once that money's out of your account, it cannot be recovered. We can't do any sort of, so if it ends up going to, it's supposed to come to me and it ends up going to John instead, and John's like, I didn't get any of your money, what are you talking about? It's gone.
I regularly tell people, when you use a cash app, you need to think about that as exactly what it is. And it's cash. You walk over and I hand cash over and I say, here's my rent. You're like, okay. And she walks out the door and then you're going, hey, where's my rent? I'm like, oh, I just paid it to your assistant. I don't know who you're talking about. She was just here. That's what you're doing, right? You are just simply giving it to somebody. So pay attention to that. Like I said, a lot of our more sophisticated property management companies, our larger apartment complexes we're seeing are doing more and more portal work. But if you do get your mom and pops, they own a couple of units, or it's a small apartment complex, it's a lot easier for them to use a banking app because Zelle and Venmo are easy.
Yeah. Any other questions for the group here in our library room 101? Anybody have anything? I also want to point out that Beth Eppinger is here with TWU Housing. If you use any financial aid to pay for your housing, you're currently living on campus, you've got questions like, how does that work? How does housing and financial aid let my landlord know? Or if you're interested in TWU Housing apartments off campus, Beth is here in the back. If you guys have any questions, please see her. She's here. It's another great resource.
And I will say one other thing that Beth does that's awesome for you all. If you're looking at your first apartment to move into and you have been living on campus, housing can provide you with a housing letter that shows they lived here and they pay. That is very important for that first apartment. They're going to want to see some housing history, and Beth and Housing can go ahead and get that to you.
All right. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, John and to Mayor. Thank you so much. And please, if you want more pizza, grab it on the way out. And I want to thank our Maroon Money mentors. Oh yeah, I do want to tell you guys, we do have Maroon Money Month. Where the heck is it? It's right here.
Next up is tomorrow. No, that's
here it
tomorrow.
is.
Spring Farming Fair and bingo and brunch.
Yes, there we go. And let me share this. I'm gonna share my screen. Anyway, this we have, the apartment fair, spring apartment fair. Who's going to that tomorrow? Everybody here in this room is probably going over that. Yes, thanks. We will have a table up there. You'll see housing and all their wonderful people. You'll see the care office as well. And that is tomorrow from 10:30 to 12:30. So stop by, tell your friends. And yeah, we're doing bingo and brunch tomorrow night. I mean, we're having, it's gonna be fun. Oh, I got some people who already signed up. Yay! Okay. Well, thank you guys.
Free food. I keep hearing free food.
Oh, yeah. We have free snacks and all the good things. All right. So thank you guys so much. Have a great evening. Thank you guys for staying. I appreciate it.